Have you ever felt like you were living someone else's life? Not the life your soul longs for, but the one that fits into expectations, social norms, and roles that were never really yours. Because here is a truth that most people never dare to face. The moment you start living for others, you begin abandoning yourself. And when you do that long enough, you forget who you are entirely. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in modern psychology, believed that the greatest tragedy of the human experience is not that we suffer, but that we suffer silently, lost in lives that aren't our own, lives built on fear, approval, and illusion. So let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and asked, am I truly living the life I want? Not the life that feels safe. Not the life that looks good on paper, but the life that speaks to your soul. Because deep inside, you already know when something's off. That unease in your chest. That voice that whispers, this isn't it. That quiet longing for more, that's not weakness. That's your truth, begging to be heard. But here's what society won't tell you. Every time you silence that voice to meet someone else's expectations, you're telling yourself you don't matter, and that's where the real suffering begins. Jung taught us that the path to wholeness requires radical honesty, the courage to ask hard questions and walk away from what no longer serves us, because if you don't choose yourself, the world will choose for you, and that life will never feel like yours. If this message already hit something deep in you, don't scroll away. Subscribe right now, not for me, but for yourself. This channel exists to bring you closer to the life your soul is silently craving. Tap the bell, leave a comment, and let's go deep. We live in a world that rewards compliance. From the moment we are born, we are trained to follow a path laid out for us: school, career, marriage, success. But what if that path was never yours to begin with? Every morning you wake up to an avalanche of expectations, work deadlines, family roles, social media ideals, and beneath all of that pressure, something within you starts to dim. Your inner voice, the one that once dreamed, questioned, and felt alive, goes quiet, numb. Carl Jung called this disconnection the root of suffering, not the pain of life's difficulties, but the pain of living out of alignment with your truth. The more you abandon your inner voice, the more lost you feel, and eventually, you forget what peace even feels like. But here's the twist. Most people aren't even aware it's happening. They wake up tired, go through the motions, chase goals that don't fulfill them, and wonder why everything still feels empty. And they think that's normal, but it's not. That emptiness you feel isn't a flaw, it's feedback. It's your soul telling you, you're off course. Come back. The problem is, most of us are terrified of coming back, because choosing yourself means risking comfort. It means facing the unknown. It means saying no to others in order to finally say yes to yourself, and that feels dangerous. But Jung made something very clear. The deeper you stray from your true self, the more chaotic your life becomes. The more disconnected your relationships feel. The more your days blur into one long, forgettable routine. Because authenticity isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And the truth is, until you choose to stop living for others, you'll never know who you really are. Think about it. How many of your recent decisions were made from your deepest truth? And how many were made from fear? Fear of being judged. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of being alone. The fear of letting go of the familiar. We're taught to ignore that discomfort, to push through it, to be strong. But Carl Jung warned us, when we ignore our inner truth, when we suppress what we really feel, that truth doesn't disappear, it festers. It turns into anxiety, confusion, burnout, depression. Because you can only betray yourself for so long before your soul starts to break. Choosing yourself doesn't mean rejecting others. It doesn't mean becoming selfish or cold. It means finally realizing that if you don't honor your own needs, your love becomes distorted. Your kindness becomes obligation. Your generosity becomes resentment. You can't pour from an empty cup. And if you keep trying, life will find a way to stop you. Illness, burnout, a quiet sadness that never leaves. These are the warning signs, the body's way of screaming what the soul has been whispering for years. You don't need more productivity. You don't need more approval. You need more you. More silence, more listening, more courage. Jung said the shadow of the part of you you've been hiding isn't your enemy. It's your teacher, the gateway to everything real. And yes, facing your shadow is uncomfortable, but running from it is a far greater pain. So pause, right now, look inward. What have you been avoiding? What truth have you been too afraid to speak? Start there. If this is speaking to something raw inside you, I invite you right now to comment below. What fear are you ready to let go of? What part of you are you ready to reclaim? And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe. This space is here to remind you, your voice matters, your truth matters. Let's be honest, most people don't even know what their truth is. They've spent so long adapting to survive that they've forgotten how to feel. But Jung believed that the first step back to your truth is simple. Pay attention to what hurts. That tension in your chest when you're about to speak but hold back. That's not random. That exhaustion after spending time with someone who drains you. That's not a coincidence. That subtle dread every Sunday night before the work week starts. That's your soul waving a red flag. The body keeps score. The unconscious remembers. And while the mind may lie, your emotions never do. So ask yourself, What in your life consistently drains you? What have you outgrown but still cling to? What parts of you have been silenced for the sake of fitting in? You see, you don't have to burn your life down to begin again, but you do have to stop lying to yourself. And maybe that's the real challenge, learning to be honest when honesty might cost you something. A job, a relationship, an identity. But what's the cost of staying silent? What's the cost of pretending? You weren't born to be a copy of someone else's expectations. You were born to live in alignment with your own soul. And every time you dim your light to make others comfortable, the world loses something irreplaceable. Carl Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, isn't a one-time event. It's a lifetime of choices, 1,000 small acts of courage, a daily decision to stop abandoning yourself. And that journey doesn't begin with a map. It begins with one brave question. What do I really want? You may think that choosing yourself is a dramatic act, a sudden leap, a grand gesture. But the truth is, it often starts quietly, with a whisper, not a roar. It starts when you say no to something that doesn't feel right, when you take 10 minutes alone, just to breathe, when you finally admit that you're not happy and that pretending won't fix it. These are not small things. These are moments of reclamation, because every time you honor what's real inside you, you're rewriting the story. You're stepping out of survival and into sovereignty. But there's a reason most people don't do it, because choosing yourself also means losing what was never meant for you, and that loss can feel like grief. You may lose relationships that were only sustained by your silence. You may lose approval from people who only loved the version of you that played small. You may even lose the image of yourself you've carefully crafted over years of people-pleasing. But what you gain is far more powerful: clarity, peace, energy, self-respect. And the more you choose yourself, the more your life begins to reflect that choice. You stop attracting chaos. You start meeting people who recognize your worth without needing to be convinced. Opportunities appear not because you chased them, but because you aligned with them. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity. It's not magic. It's the result of internal truth meeting external reality. You don't need to fight for your place in the world. You need only return to who you were before the world told you who to be. Here as a truth most won't admit. Peace is terrifying to those who have lived in chaos their whole lives. If you're used to earning love through effort, rest will feel unsafe. If you're used to proving your worth, silence will feel like punishment. If you've been trained to please, putting yourself first will feel like betrayal. But none of that is true. Jung believed that healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. And to remember, you must slow down. Stop performing, start pretending, start listening. Your intuition is not broken. It's just been buried beneath years of noise, opinions, advice, expectations. But it's still there, waiting. It's the voice that says, this isn't right, even when your mind tries to rationalize it. It asks the ache in your chest when you're reforcing something that should be been let go. It asks the quiet joy that rises when you finally aligned with what feels like home. The journey back to yourself isn't about ego. It's about essence. And essence doesn't compete. It doesn't chase. It simply is. You don't need to do more, be more, prove more. You need to trust more, feel more, remember more, because your truest life is not something to build, it's something to uncover. And every layer you strip away, every mask you remove, brings you one step closer to the real you. Let me ask you something raw. What would you have to give up in order to finally be free? Think about it. Would it be the need to always be liked? The urge to explain yourself? The habit of shrinking so others don't feel uncomfortable? Because the price of people-pleasing is always the same: yourself. Carl Jung taught that true transformation begins the moment you're willing to sit in the discomfort of being misunderstood, to let go of being the good one, the reliable one, the version of you that earns love through compliance. When you no longer trade authenticity for approval, you begin to rise. Yes, people will resist, some will push back, some will leave, but those who stay, those are your people. The ones who love you in your rawness, not your performance. So, here's your permission. You don't have to be everything to everyone. Be everything to you. And watch what shifts. Your voice becomes stronger. Your presence becomes magnetic. Your boundaries become sacred, not walls, but doors that only open to love that respects you. So if you're on this path, if you're feeling the call to come home to yourself, don't do it in silence. Subscribe to this channel, drop a comment, share your truth, not just for connection but as a declaration. Because if this message reached you, it's not an accident. You're ready. You've been taught that letting go is weakness, that change is risky, that comfort is king. But Jung challenges all of that. He believed that clinging to what no longer serves you is the true danger. Because while comfort feels safe, it often keeps you small. You know, that friendship that drains you, that job that suffocates you, that role you keep playing to keep the peace. None of that is love. None of that is freedom. That's a cage built from fear, and you're the one holding the key. Letting go doesn't mean failure. It means maturity. It means you've finally learned to choose reality over illusion. It means you've stopped bargaining with your own soul. And yes, it's scary, because what comes after letting go is unknown. But the unknown is not your enemy. It's your evolution. It's the space where new dreams are born, where real relationships emerge, where your truest self can breathe again. You weren't meant to shrink. You weren't meant to dim. You weren't meant to live on autopilot, checking boxes, waiting for permission to feel alive. You were meant to create, to speak, to expand, to take up space not just in the world, but in your own life. And all of that begins the moment you stop asking, who do they want me to be? And start asking, who was I before I began performing? There's a reason Carl Jung didn't speak in steps or formulas. He understood something essential. The soul doesn't respond to systems, it responds to symbols, stories, shadows. Your healing will not be linear. Your awakening will not come with a manual. Your transformation will be messy, emotional, sacred, and entirely yours. Some days, you'll feel certain. Other days, you'll question everything. And that's okay. Because the path of self-choosing is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up for yourself, even when it's hard. It's about staying, even when you want to run. It's about listening, even when the truth breaks your heart. You will have setbacks. Old patterns will resurface. People will challenge your growth. And in those moments, the temptation to return to your old self will be strong. But you're not who you were. You've seen too much, felt too much, known too much. You can't go back, not really. Not when you've tasted what freedom feels like. Not when you've heard your own voice rise after years of silence. So don't return to the version of you that made others comfortable at the cost of your soul. Keep walking, keep listening, keep choosing. You're not rebuilding, you're remembering. So many people walk through life half asleep. They follow the rules, they smile when expected. They achieve, accumulate, perform, and yet inside, they feel nothing. That emptiness isn't failure, it's feedback. Carl Jung called it a soul cry, a signal that you're out of alignment. That somewhere along the line you traded truth for comfort, and it's no longer working. You might be successful, but do you feel fulfilled? You might be admired, but do you feel seen? You might be surrounded, but do you feel known? These are questions most people avoid because the answers require change, and change that's terrifying. But Jung taught that avoiding the truth is far more dangerous than facing it. Because when you deny your truth long enough, it begins to rot. You lose your passion, your spark, your connection to life itself. But here's the secret, it's not too late. You can still come home to yourself. You can still choose to stop the performance and live with presence. You can walk away from the roles that drain you, the stories that limit you, the masks that hide you. You are not too far gone. Every moment you breathe is another chance to return, not to who you were, but to who you really are. And when you do, you stop chasing happiness. Because happiness becomes the ground you walk on. Choosing yourself is not a destination, it's a daily decision. It's the moment you pause before saying yes and ask, do I really want this? It's the courage to speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. It's the refusal to abandon your intuition, even when everyone else disagrees. And as you continue on this path, something starts to shift. You no longer feel the need to justify your boundaries. You stop explaining your healing. You begin honoring your no as much as your yes. This isn't arrogance. This is alignment. When you are aligned, peace is no longer something you chase. It becomes the ground you walk on, the energy you carry, the frequency you emit. But don't expect the world to applaud your evolution. Some will resist your light because it reveals the places they've dimmed their own. Jung understood this. He said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And when you start facing yours, you trigger what others are not yet ready to confront. So remember, their discomfort is not your burden. You are not responsible for the emotions that rise in others when you finally become yourself. Your only responsibility is to keep walking toward what's true even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Because what's on the other side of discomfort is freedom. Let's talk about what happens when you finally step into your truth. At first, it feels unfamiliar, like walking barefoot after years in heavy armor. Then, it feels tender, like exposing skin that hasn't seen the sun in ages. And then, it starts to feel like home. You begin noticing things you once ignored. The way your body reacts to certain people. The subtle tension in conversations that no longer align. The peace that comes when you're alone but not lonely. You become deeply selective, not out of fear, but out of reverence. You no longer say yes because it's expected. You say yes because it's authentic. And when that becomes your new standard, your entire reality begins to transform. This is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of individuation. It's not isolation, it's integration. It's returning to your center so that everything in your life can orbit around what's real. So here's the truth. You don't need fixing. You need revealing. Everything you're searching for, peace, purpose, passion, it's already within you. You just have to stop abandoning yourself long enough to remember. If this landed, tell me in the comments what truth you're ready to reclaim. And if you haven't already, subscribe. This space is more than content, it's a mirror. And maybe this was the moment you finally saw yourself again. One of the greatest myths ever told is that self-love is selfish. It's not, it's revolutionary. Because in a world that profits from your self-doubt, loving yourself is an act of rebellion. And no, self-love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's fierce. Sometimes it looks like saying no, walking away, drawing a line, letting go. It's not about bubble baths and mantras, though those have their place. It's about sovereignty. It's about choosing not to abandon yourself, even when it would be easier to do so. Carl Jung didn't romanticize the self. He understood that to truly love yourself, you have to know yourself. And to know yourself, you must be willing to see all of it. The light and the dark. The healed and the hurting. The powerful and the petrified. You don't become whole by avoiding your shadow. You become whole by inviting it in. Integration isn't a goal, it's a practice. And every time you choose to see yourself with honesty instead of judgment, you heal a little more. Because the real you, the one beneath the masks, the roles, the performance has been waiting for you all along. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is slow down. Not quit, not collapse, just pause. Because in the pause, everything speaks. Your body, your intuition, your truth. Jung believed the unconscious never sleeps. Even in stillness, it's working, revealing, whispering, guiding. But most people are moving too fast to hear it. They fill the silence with noise, the stillness with distraction. But you're different. You're starting to listen. You're beginning to feel. And in that sacred space of awareness, something powerful begins to awaken your knowing. You no longer need someone else to confirm what you've always felt. You stop outsourcing your clarity. You start trusting the wisdom within. This is not arrogance. This is intimacy with yourself. And in that intimacy, your standards shift. You no longer settle for half-hearted love, hollow praise, or surface-level living. You want depth. You want real. You want soul. And that longing, it's not something to fear. It's the compass that will lead you home. Let's take a moment right now. Just you and this truth. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are exactly where you need to be. Because this moment, this message is part of your return to presence, to power, to peace. Carl Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And maybe today you finally opened your eyes. Maybe this is the moment you stopped waiting, stopped performing, stopped pretending, and started becoming. The path won't always be clear, but it will always be yours. You will stumble, you will doubt, but you will rise again every time, because once you've tasted the truth, illusion will never satisfy you again. And that's your strength. You've been through the fire, and you're still here, not burned, not broken, but brighter than ever. What if your greatest breakthrough isn't some distant event, but a quiet decision you make today? To stop betraying your gut, to stop apologizing for your truth, to stop waiting for permission to become who you already are. This isn't about becoming someone new, it's about removing what was never really you. The roles you played, the masks you wore, the expectations you carried. Carl Jung didn't ask us to add more to our lives. He invited us to shed, to dig, to descend into the depths of our soul, not to get lost, but to remember. Because buried beneath all the noise is something sacred, your essence. And when you touch that essence, you stop needing to be loud to be heard. You stop needing to be perfect to be worthy. You stop needing to be anything other than you. And in that silence, something shifts. You stop running, you stop striving, you start being. And in that being, you discover a power you didn't know you had. The power to create a life that feels like your own. Not one designed by fear, but one rooted in freedom. So now the question is no longer if you should choose yourself. The question is, will you? Will you listen to the quiet wisdom rising within you? Will you honor the longings you've silenced for far too long? Will you trust that voice that whispers, there's more? Because there is. There's a life beyond survival, a love beyond performance, a version of you that doesn't just exist but radiates. And choosing yourself isn't just a gift to you, it's a gift to the world. Because every time you rise, you give others permission to rise too. Every time you speak your truth, you crack the illusion of conformity. Every time you reclaim your power, you make it safer for others to reclaim theirs. This is how we heal. Not by shouting louder, but by living truer. Not by waiting for the world to change, but by becoming the change ourselves. So if this spoke to you, if this touched something sacred within you, don't let the moment pass. Share it, speak it, live it. And when the noise gets loud and the world tries to pull you back into who you used to be, pause, breathe, and remember. The moment you choose yourself, everything changes forever.